The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is The Angry Chicken.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is TAC time. I'm Garrett Weinzerl, and I'm sitting here with Jocelyn Moffat. Dills is out visiting friends and family back in his hometown, so we're going to duo this-ish.
Yep, we are.
Yep. How are you doing on this fine Tuesday that I'm going to pretend like I didn't also record another podcast with you on?
I'm doing pretty okay.
Well, that's just solid.
Yep.
Yeah. So at first we're like, man, there's only two of us. It's going to be a short show today. But that's no longer the case because we've got some
Good news, everyone!
Hey, Joss, we know what the balance changes are going to be now.
Yep, we still don't 100% know when they're coming, but we do know that they are not going to come before this weekend because this weekend is the APAC regional qualifiers for the Summer Championship, so they're not going to make changes this week. But we do know that they're coming before the end of May, so, we've got it narrowed down a little bit.
Yeah, we do. It's coming, right? We know it's coming. That's good. Unless you're me
TM.
and you get on and you lose to a turn 4 call to arms and you're like, oh, but I knew it's going to change.
Yeah, which was kind of my whole thing that we were talking about last week when they announced that they were going to do nerfs, but they were going to wait until after all the playoffs. And I was just like, does that make it feel better or worse to lose to Warlock and Paladin, knowing which cards will be nerfed, but not how, when, or why?
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, knowing that the changes were coming anyway, like we were pretty, there were certain cards we were pretty sure were going to get dinged, right? Like there was no way Call to Arms was making it out of this change unscathed.
Yep.
And that turned out to be true. But I guess let's talk about what actually changed. First, let's start in. Let's make a pit stop into Wild because Naga Sea Witch just happens to be the first in the changes, and I'm just looking at the website right now. But Naga Sea Witch is going up from 5 mana, not to 6, not to 7, but to 8, going all the way up to 8 mana, and that's it. Still gonna make your cards cost 5. Still is a 5/5, but is gaining a ton of mana required to play it.
Which I think is kind of fine because the big problem with Naga Sea Witch and with loading the board up with 8/8 that early in the game is that most classes don't have any kind of crazy removal for that. Like, I mean, mages with just Dragon Fury and like Pyroblast, sure. But,
yeah.
Like, for the most part, I mean, like even Warlocks and Twisting Nether, like all the big total board wipes, even Shamans with Volcano couldn't deal with this. So I feel like making it happen later in the game is enough time that people can, race you down or, have their board clears available if they are more control-y. So this is good, I think.
Yep.
Granted, I don't play Wild, but I feel like moving something that was game-breaking on turn 5 up to turn 8, I feel like that's better.
Yeah. I don't play Wild right now. I tend to move to Wild when I'm a little bored with the current meta. Which means I'm probably going to start playing Wild tomorrow. But yeah, this is definitely not bad, right? Like this is nothing but a good change in my mind. Not the most creative change, but I would say most of these, and not necessarily a bad thing, but most of these are the most straightforward nerfs and changes we've seen.
Yeah, they didn't really change cards much. They mostly messed with mana cost.
Yep.
Couple of exceptions, but for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing in here that looks like Warsong Commander, where it's just like, are you even the same card? Like, there's nothing like that happening here. So, Naga Sea Witch, don't worry, that shenanigans won't be happening until turn 8, which means it just might not be happening anymore.
Yeah, and I didn't have time before the show, but I meant to go look up and see what Dane had to say about this change because I feel like he is like the be-all end-all of my go-to for wild information. So I really want to know what he thinks about this change because it seems good to me, but I'm glad that they didn't just make it like 1 mana. Like they went for it. I feel like this is the biggest mana cost change we've ever seen in a nerf, right? Like going up 3 mana, that's huge.
Yeah, off the top of my head, it certainly seems like I can't. No, I think that's a safe statement.
Yeah, I feel like we've had like one mana swings for the most part. I'm trying to think. Starving Buzzard would probably be the biggest I can remember. That went from what, 3 to 5?
Yes.
But still,
so that would have been a 2.
This is a big change. And chat room's telling me Dane hasn't commented yet, so.
Well, there
at
you
least
go.
I'm not way far behind.
I'm trying to see if there's an easy to see list of all Hearthstone changes ever. Hearthstone Game PD is not. It does have one, but it's all just text, so I can't really. Yeah, no.
Chat room's telling me Giants. Yeah, so what was that? Molten Giant went from 20 to 25. So, but I mean, when you're going from 20 to 25. 5 to 8 is a bigger percentage swing. That's what I'll go with. That's my argument.
I didn't really think about that either. In the realm of cards that you can play without having certain conditions met, this is the there you go. There's your asterisk, Joss.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, let's see what the hell is going on with Standard, which also technically affects Wild. But yeah, Spiteful Summoner on the chopping block, going from 6 mana to 7 mana.
This change is kind of interesting because this is the, I guess, like least called for change when it comes to Spiteful Summoner. There were a lot of people who were asking for it to be a recruit that cost minion from your deck. So if you had, say, play Spiteful, you had a 6 mana cost spell in your deck, then you would pull a 6 mana minion from your deck, like make it more of a straight up recruit as opposed to a random effect. There were also people asking for it to consume the spell. So if it revealed, the ultimate infestation, that meant you got a 10 mana minion, but then didn't get like to keep the ultimate infestation. So this is a very, very straightforward change. And I don't think that it's the change the community really wanted.
Yeah, for me, Summoner...
This doesn't seem to change it that much.
For me, I didn't think Summoner really needed a change. It seemed okay, especially in the type of deck that it goes in. I mean, right now, to make this as straightforward of a conversation as I can, Druid is on top of the Spiteful block, right? Spiteful Priest is significantly below the only other Spiteful deck that is being played. And that Druid deck only runs 2 Ultimate Infestations, and because of that, Spiteful Summoner can just brick horribly to begin with.
Well, and I mean, like, actually, it's funny because we had an email about the idea of bricking on a Spiteful Summoner. But the problem with Spiteful Druid isn't necessarily a problem with Spiteful Summoner. It's that they made the pool with the rotation, the pool of 10 drops just got that much smaller. So there wasn't really a necessarily outright bad outcome. It was just like they took some of the weaker minions, those rotated out, and in their place, it's like you've got 8/8s and better. So it's like the pool of minions for Druid is just that much smaller than everyone else, and they're all good, which is why Spiteful's getting played in that deck, right? So it's like the problem's not with the card Spiteful Summoner, because if Spiteful Summoner was overpowered, then every class would have a Spiteful deck, but they don't. So I don't necessarily think Summoner's the problem. I think the pool of cards of Druid is the problem, but you can't fix the problem of the pool of cards without introducing new cards, so they had to change Summoner, basically.
Yeah, which I would take issue with. I would say, why not just add a bad 10-drop? Just give it to everyone for free. Use one of the pieces of art that doesn't exist in a card from the single player. There's a lot of extra art in there that hasn't been used. I would recommend that adorable bulldog with a spiked collar. I want to see that as a damn card, please and thank you. I not that I necessarily think that would be the right call, but I would find it more interesting than this change. I mean, if I remove myself from my own personal opinion that Spiteful Summoner didn't need to be nerfed in the first place, and we want to talk about it should be changed, I think the biggest issue with it is that it's high rolly in the first place. Dills is not here, but I feel like if he was, he would be talking about how, a trend on this show since Witchwood came out, when we're looking at cards was, oh wow, look at the lesson learned here, especially with the odd and the even cards, the kind of course correction from things like Keleseth, where and that's where I think Spiteful Summoner falls. This feels high roll because you have to draw Spiteful Summoner before you draw your large spells. Mm-hmm. That's also what makes it balanced, but this change doesn't seem informed by lessons learned, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I could totally see that because they didn't change at the core. They didn't change what the card does. And I mean, 6 mana for a 4/4, 7 mana for a 4/4. It's not really the 4/4 that is causing the problem, right? And one turn later, I don't know if that's really going to make that much of a difference. I mean, it's not going to stop Druid from playing Spiteful decks. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that it would kind of stop/slow down would be Spiteful Priest, which, like you mentioned, isn't really a problem anymore because it used to be with Priest, you could go like Spiteful 6, Spiteful 7. Like now you're only going to get one Spiteful before you actually roll into your high mana cost spells. But Druid doesn't have that kind of curve. It doesn't have the same sort of a curve as Priest does, right? Because their big spells, their big impactful spells, it's just one and it's at 10. So you could still get 2 Spitefuls off before you're actually wanting to draw and play an Ultimate Infestation. So I don't know about this change. I think that there's better ways they could have done it. I agree that changing the pool of 10 drops might have been the way to go, but them putting new cards in the game in between expansions is like totally unprecedented. They've literally never done it. So even though it might be the right move, and we've talked about this before, that we don't want to see them kind of pigeonholed into solutions when they are a digital card game and they have a lot of flexibility. We'd like to see them experiment with things like that, but I feel like that's a bit too far of a leap for them. So, but I think you're right. Changing the 10 drop pool is a better way to fix the problem with Summoner than changing Summoner itself, if they were just going to do what they did and change mana cost. I think there are other solutions to card text, but they did what they did. This is what they did.
Yep. If we had a Team 5 dev on this week, I would ask, did you even consider just diluting the 10-drop pool?
Yeah.
Because it certainly, and to me, like, I'll be the first to admit, like, we do a show. I just kind of, maybe part of me is biased because I would just like to see an interesting approach, something we haven't seen before. So when I see something just go from 6 to 7, I'm like, meh,
yeah,
kind of a boring change. And I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't expect this to make a big difference either.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on. Dark Pact. This card has been the bane of my existence for a while now. I think it's still gonna be.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that's changing is the amount of health that it restores to your hero. It used to restore 8. Once this change goes live, it's going to restore 4. To me, the issue with Dark Pact was always the mana cost.
Yeah, it was the ability to, for 1 mana, destroy one of your own minions, and that worked in your favor way more often than not because you were destroying cubes or you were destroying lackeys or whatever, and at 1 mana, it's just way too flexible. I mean, yeah, every once in a while, them healing for 8 would put them out of range of my burn spells on the deck we're going to talk about in strategy today, Tempo Mage, like, which is supposed to be like the Warlock counter, air quotes. So, I mean, yeah, sometimes the healing on Dark Pact was a problem, but most of the time it's flexibility with the mana cost and killing your own minions that you want to die anyways, usually in the same turn you play them. Like, even when you have a 4/6 on board, you'd still rather it be dead. That's crazy. And this enabled these kind of combos, and so that's not going to change. And I just, ugh.
Yeah, I'm I'm just kind of unhappy with this change. Just like, I don't agree with it. I'm not sure why. Yes, Possessed Lackey, we're about to talk about next. I guess we should just go ahead and talk about Possessed Lackey. It's now going to cost 6 mana up from 5. Like, yes, that kind of that is the bigger change here to Warlock, right? Like, that Lackey will be coming down 1 turn later, but their ability to instantly pop it, or instantly pop their cube, or instantly kill their own Void Caller. I always get it wrong. Intentionally to put it in their death pool so that the Gul'dan Death Knight will bring it back.
Void Lord.
Void Lord. Sorry.
Yeah.
Void
Caller was old
GVG,
dude that pulled
right?
dudes out of your hand. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Whatever the case is, none of that is diminished. Like, you can even combo this with a Void Lord at 10 mana, paying the 9 mana for your Void Lord if you really want to. So to me, Dark Pack's power comes from its mana cost, which has not been touched. So this card is still great.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it does kind of help, because my big problem with Warlocks is that they seem to just be good at everything, and there was really no downside to playing them. They were good at board clears. They were good at making taunts. They were good at bringing things back. They were good at healing. They were good at drawing cards, and it's just like, okay, guys, like, you gotta nerf something when Warlocks can heal more than priests and paladins. Thematically, that's an issue. So I do agree that, like, maybe this shouldn't heal as much as it was. Like, 8 for 1 is ridiculous with, like I mentioned, destroying a friendly minion, at least right now in Warlock, is not a drawback. So they were doing too much too well. This is going to make it so that they do it a little bit less efficiently, but that's still 8 extra health that they have to play with at any point during the game, right? So I mean,
if they have both of the cards, yes.
Yeah.
Both
so
Dark
I
Knights.
mean, yeah, I'm not 100% happy with this, but it's a change at least.
Yeah, that's
some of the problematic cards.
Yeah. I don't know, because looking at that and looking at Possessed Lackey, yes, if I'm playing an aggressive deck, it certainly feels like when I have a perfect opener that one more turn and I would have won.
Yep.
But now
that is true. Like, this does open them up to some more aggression, especially with the Lackey change as well, because if that's coming down on turn 6, or if you are pairing that with Dark Pact, then that's going to be turn 7. A turn 7 Void Lord as opposed to a turn 6 Void Lord, that might be the 1 extra turn that you need. And even then, if they're Dark Pacting it, they're not going to be getting that 8 heal. They're getting a 4 heal. So that might be enough. Although I feel like when I kill Warlocks, when I don't kill Warlocks, and by the time they've got their healing and armor from the beetles and everything else, like, I'm not losing with them at 4 health. I'm losing with them at like 24 health. So, you know, that 8 that they're losing from 4 from each Dark Pact, I don't think that that's going to be enough.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And one more turn of minions and a little bit less healing. I still think that they're just doing things too well. I think that the healing from Dark Pact probably should have been just removed, period, because I think that they should have some other upside. You know, like, I don't necessarily know what that upside could be. Could be card draw, could be recruiting. Like, I don't know what it should be, but it just feels like, because of the way the Warlock hero power works, where you're trading your health for a card every turn if you want to, I don't think you should then be able to just, like, totally negate the downside of your already super powerful hero power. It's like, it seems to me like they tap, like, all through the early game, and then they just Dark Pact, and all of that damage is healed up again. So now they're way ahead in cards and have had no downside.
Yeah. In my mind, because of the world that we live in with Lackey and with Cube, if I was playing Warlock, I would pay my own life to destroy my Cube, to destroy my Lackey. So the fact that there's a card that is beneficial on top of another benefit is just a little too stacked.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, there's a conversation here about our own personal biases. I know you and I both are sick to death of playing against Warlocks and never want to see them again. And these are disappointing changes if that's what you deep down desire, to be honest. Like, let's put the biases out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably better if the deck is still playable, just not as good. But for me,
yeah, I'm sure that they don't want Q Block to become unplayable, which to me, you're right, Garrett. I am totally biased. I hate Warlock. I would be totally fine. I feel like Warlock has been, with maybe one expansion's exception, I feel like they weren't very powerful around like kind of this time last year, but that lasted for like one expansion. Then they got Gul'dan, and now they're crazy powerful again. So like, I would be totally fine if they got nerfed into the ground and we had like a year, like if it took until the next rotation before Warlock came back up again, that would make me happy. I would be totally okay with just a year without Warlock.
yeah, send them down to the dungeons with Shaman, please.
Exactly.
That's where my head is at. Or even at the very least, I mean, you're bringing up kind of the history of the power of Warlock, which you're right. Over the course of this game, with a few minor exceptions, Warlock has always been good. But even in the past, when they stayed good between sometimes just expansions and other times in between standard rotations, they changed. Like, the type of deck and the way that they played changed. We've gone through Handlock, we've gone through Reno Lock, we've gone through Control Lock, GVG, Zoo. I mean, Zoo comes and goes, right? Zoo is its own thing that I kind of want to remove from this conversation to just make it a convenient through point. Because Zoo's fine right now, and it's kind of, I get really excited now when I see Zoo because I'm so done with Void Lords and Doom Guards. But yeah, my bigger issue here is I feel like I've been playing against the same deck for half a year.
Yeah.
But okay, that's off our chest. So I mean, I don't really know what else to say about Dark Pact and the Possessed Lackey change other than they are timid. I don't think you're going to see any less Warlocks.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, it kind of depends what everyone else on ladder decides to do. If the whole rest of the ladder decides, oh, this is going to be like, this is the time to punish Warlock, then, Q Block players might just give up and we might move away from Q Block, not necessarily because the deck is that much worse, just because people decide this is the time to punish anyone trying to make it work. I don't know. But yeah, I'd be totally fine if my ladder was Warlock free. Give us bans on ladder.
I would
not going to derail into that conversation again, but
I would be very down for that right now, especially after seeing these changes, because I don't think my ladder experience is going to change that much.
Yeah.
Call to Arms is up next. One more mana tacked on. It's going to be 5 mana now. Nothing else changes. Balanced is where that's kind of my gut reaction. This is just now a balanced card, I think.
Yeah, and it takes it out of Even Paladin, which I think is the kind of important point here, is because Even Paladin was quite overpowered with Call to Arms specifically, because you were guaranteed to get 3 2-drops, right? Because you didn't have any ones, and you didn't have, so it just like everything was more powerful because you got those guaranteed 2s. And now they're not going to be able to do that. So now Call to Arms, if you're looking at it in Odd Paladin, is only going to bring out 3 1-drops because you don't have any 2-drops. So it's probably only going to see play in decks where you are, playing all the cards, probably some of the more like control-y variants, things that play with the Death Knight, like that kind of it's going to have that kind of a home now. And I think it's okay there.
Yeah, so this, and also the big change here is the swap from even to odd.
Yes,
This is the first card change to a deck that is very odd/even dependent. And I just, the only real thing I think this changes, other than from like in a vacuum making Call to Arms, I would argue a balanced card, is shifting the power over to odd. I think odd is going to be the winningest Paladin deck with this change.
Well, and even then, I don't even think that it's necessarily as effective now, because in the odd decks, you can only pull 1-drops. So getting 3 1-drops is going to be less powerful than getting 3 2-drops, which was the problem before. In even Paladin, you were guaranteed those 2-drops because you didn't have any 1s. And now you're going to be guaranteed 3 1s, and that's not quite as powerful. Plus, you're waiting that other turn, right? So turn 5, now you're going to pull 3 1-drops. Not quite as powerful. So I think that this mana change to me makes sense because of the way that Paladin is working right now with the dependency on odd and even cards. I'm glad that they made this change. I think this change brings those two decks down in power level in a better way than changing the Baku hero power, which was the other change that was on the board, right? That they were talking about.
Yeah. You're bringing up another good. The other thing too, like this is obvious and falls under the statement of you're not getting 2-drops if you're playing odd. Yeah, knife jugglers, man. Like that's what you're praying for, right? That being said, I think Murloc Paladin going to be totally fine.
Murloc Paladin is another one that we've seen kind of drop off as odd and even have been more favored among players. We've seen Murloc drop off. Doesn't mean it's not powerful. We see Murloc Paladin still in HCT. I think it's still a fine deck. And this change, I think, just opens up Paladin a little bit more. I think it has legit like 4 actual viable archetypes now, which is good because it was getting a little pigeonholed into the hero power variants.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think Murloc Paladin has arguably pulled ahead of Odd in the last couple of weeks. And, man, now I think about it, is Murloc Paladin just going to be the right call because it has the best way to use Call to Arms?
Well, but I don't necessarily think that Call to Arms is super OP now. Like, even in Murloc Paladin, because even then, you still have to wait till turn 5 to do this. So it might even be too slow potentially for Murloc Paladin. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say until you see it played at 5 mana in Murloc Paladin. It's kind of difficult, but I think just the changes to odd and even are enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this is what this card always should have been, I think.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, this of all the changes, this is the one that's the most interesting to me. I think it has the biggest ripple effect through the meta.
Yep.
Is this Call to Arms change? So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, this changes haven't been that live that long, or not live, public that long, and yeah, I'm still mulling it over in my brain as we speak. So.
Yep.
I don't want to go back to playing Murloc Paladin.
I don't mind Murloc Paladin.
I like it. I like it too. I've played it a lot. This is the only thing for me. I have nothing against it. It's actually, I have a really good win rate with it, to the point where I'm sure some listeners right now are like, I knew you were one of those, Garrett. I knew it. But anyways, finally, Quest Rogue, be on alert. Crystal Core is getting nerfed again. Mana cost staying the same. Your minions are now going to be 4/4s, though, down from 5/5s.
Glad they didn't just, like, I don't know, make this 6 minions or something. Like you have to play 6 of the same minion.
just play one more minion.
Yeah.
Of the same. Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, it would just get kind of ridiculous and almost nigh impossible to complete. But yeah, this Crystal Core, this is the one where I really kind of, I feel for the devs. I'm like, yeah, this card's just been problematic.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where, like, it's been a problem and it's been oppressive ever since it was designed for different reasons. Like, it seems like this is a powerful effect that they can't get right. And it's like they want it to work, but it's been either too easy to complete, or the minions have been too powerful, or even like the 1-drop design space is limited. Like, this card has created more problems than I think anything else in the history of Hearthstone, and they just can't seem to get it right. So,
and it's always been like a time bomb. Like, it's always just sat there. Like, when it first came out, everyone was like, that's crap. Most of the quests are crap. I'm going to just go make a taunt warrior. And then weeks later, we're all like, oh, hey, guys, Quest Rogue is totally busted. We should just be playing this. And then they nerfed it. And then no one touched it forever. And then Witchwood comes out and suddenly it's back. But again, even then, I think, did it take 2 weeks from Witchwood's launch for us to realize that Quest Rogue was back on the menu?
I don't even think it took that long.
For me, it feels like it was 2 weeks. I don't know. But whatever the case is.
Because Crystal Core, or like Caverns Below and all this Quest Rogue-y stuff was even making a comeback before Witchwood came out, just because it tends to deal well with Warlock, and people have been looking for ways to deal with Warlock. So this whole Quest Rogue thing was kind of a response to a lot of that stuff. it was definitely rumblings before the rotation, and then became more and more. I don't know. I think that they nerfed this because they were also making changes to Warlock. So without Warlock, they I don't know. It's all this crazy like rock paper scissors, I guess, that they have to figure out is like, if we change this thing, then what happens if we change, like, what happens to this other thing, and how are we gonna fix all these moving pieces? I don't know. I kind of wish they'd left it alone, but 4/4s are definitely easier to deal with than 5/5s.
To me, I look at this one and I think once again they're kind of like, oh, stuff's coming down the pipeline. This is problematic again. I think this is to me it strikes me as less of a reaction to the meta right now, because I'm kind of with you. I don't think Quest Rogue was that bad. It's certainly powerful and it certainly feels bad when they win. But in terms of win rates and games played and its representation within the standard ladder, I think it's in an okay place.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very. It's not running over the ladder the way that some of the other decks are right now. You might be right. Less of a change for what's currently coming and more of a change for things that they wanted to do in the next couple of expansions. We'll see. But poor Quest Rogue.
Pour one out. For the Quest Rogue. I don't know, man. One mana, 4/4 chargers, still pretty good.
Yeah, still pretty good. Although, and chat room's bringing up this point too, that I think this is going to potentially make Big Mage a little bit more viable. They're pretty much the only Mage deck right now that is actually running a Flame Strike. So, between Dragon's Fury and Flame Strikes and stuff like that, they're going to be more easily able to deal with the board. Although, the thing about Quest Rogue is normally, you're right, with the C word, they definitely charge things in.
Did you say the C word?
You can't, charge the C word. What do you think I meant, Garrett?
Oh, God. I'm just like, boy, that's a strong word for Quest Rogues, Jocelyn.
No, I just mean with charge that a mage with a bunch of big removal spells can't do much because usually they're just dead because of charging. Because rogue, never mind. I'm broken.
I'm broken now. Yes, yeah. I'm. This is another one where I'm kind of anxious to see it shake out, because since they're not adjusting how you complete the quest, we know it's still very possible to complete the quest. Now let's find out if 4/4s can consistently get the job done.
Yeah, they're just that much easier to kill, right?
Yeah,
like 1 health doesn't seem like much, but the difference between 4 and 5, there's a lot of removal. Even like Soulfire, for instance, like these kind of tools just couldn't be used against Quest Rogue before, but now it can. So
Laura Man says, charge you next Tuesday.
I just saw that. So good.
It's pretty good. Oh, well, that's great. Well, yeah, overall, it just feels like like this is really just making cards balanced.
Yeah.
I'll go to bat for saying Dark Pact is still dumb and not balanced, but Spiteful, Lackey, Call to Arms, Crystal Core, they're just more balanced than they used to be. Let's see if Crystal Core gets changed one more time, and then it will be vying for, what's the joke I was making? Bunker in Wings of Liberty era StarCraft 2 was one of the most changed damn things ever.
Cravens in the chat room actually makes a good point that this is a little bit of a nerf to Shadow Reaper Anduin if we start seeing a whole lot more of the Quest Rogues, which I don't know if we will, but right now, Shadow Reaper Anduin could get rid of their 5/5s, but now they're 4/4s, so...
Yeah, I've been playing some Control Priest, and that's a pretty rotten matchup, and I've cleared the board many times with my DK, and it doesn't really matter. It feels like I'll just be losing a game I would have lost anyway sooner.
Fair enough.
But I certainly had that thought. I was like, oh man, I can't clear the board. Oh wait, I lose anyway when I do that. I guess I'll just move on with my life. But yeah, it is worth mentioning. At least it feels good when I get to drop that Anduin. It's like, I'm doing something, even if it's moot, because they bounced all their boars back to their hand. Mm-hmm. But Anyways, that's it. That's the end of it. A lot of cards, kind of missed the chopping block. I feel, though, that they adjusted more cards than I thought they were going to.
Yeah, because I think the list that we were originally provided by Ixar was, there was only, 3 other options. There was Ungoro belongs to the Titans.
Some Sunkeeper Tarim.
Yes, Tarim. Thank you.
Doomguard was on there. Blood Reaver
Yep.
Gul'dan was on there. Kobold Librarian was on there. And
Right.
the Odd Paladin Hero Power was considered as well.
Right. So, we saw just over half of them changed. And I think most of them changed in a fairly decent way. So hopefully this will shake up our meta enough that we just don't see Q block everywhere all of the time.
Yep. Well, in other news, Jocelyn, were you aware that this podcast called The Angry Chicken had a Team 5 dev on last week?
I think I heard something about that.
Well, were you aware that Peter Whalen answered some questions about tournaments, the tournament feature beta? They're not calling it tournament mode, and that it may or may not have been the answers that those hosts were hoping to hear.
Mm-hmm. I definitely did hear that. I think it was from a Reddit post on our Hearthstone.
It was. User Heiserflip posted to our Hearthstone just yesterday or a couple of days ago. Actually, it was over the weekend. Whatever the case, to vent some frustrations with Waylon's answers from last week to our tournament beta questions. And then Ixar joined in the comments in here. He was replying to a comment that said, quote, "It boggles my mind why they insist on keeping everything as bare bones as possible, constantly pretending they are a team of 5 with a game that barely keeps them afloat." Ixar replied to that saying, "Features take time. Tournaments are a long requested game mode, and we want to put something in the hands of the community as soon as possible. When we first announced tournaments as a beta, we meant that as a true beta. There might be some bugs and there might be some features missing from it you thought were really important. We still think it will be really cool because tournaments mean so many different things to different people. It made sense to get together the pieces of a tournament that are absolutely necessary, then build on it one piece at a time as we gather community feedback."
I hate the company line of tournaments mean so many different things to different people. I hate it. Whether it's true or not, I hate it. I'm so sick of it.
It makes my blood boil, Jocelyn.
At least I'm not alone then, because, we've been hearing this since we first started asking for tournament mode,
in beta.
Years ago.
In beta.
Years ago, yes, in beta.
In Hearthstone's beta.
And especially since they've, drawn the line of qualifying for HCT up through the ladder, that is the progression, with the exception of the tour stops that you can do now. But ladder is the way that you get points. The fact that you can't ladder the way that you HCT is just to me. And so I feel like the first step should be making a tournament client that you are actually going to use for your tournaments. That should be the first thing that it means to people, is just, making Hearthstone tournaments like HCT possible. And then if you want to add other features later, then that should be the natural progression, not making something. I don't even know what their goal is with what they've actually created at this point, because it seems like there's a whole bunch of different things that it doesn't do that we think that it should. So, I guess they're trying to make it a thing you do in your living room with your friends and family. I don't know, but I don't understand what their goal is with this current, what they think is tournament mode.
Yeah, and basically they're putting me in the position of agreeing with Reddit, which I never feel good about. So, but I think there's very little I read in this thread that I wasn't just like preach, hallelujah. Yeah, it's. I don't get that. I really don't, and I don't understand the play it first, then give us feedback. It's I don't want to play it because of the features missing.
Because it's missing X, Y, and Z. So therefore, I'm not even excited to get the beta, because I don't even know how I'm going to test it, because I don't play Hearthstone with my friends and family. I play Hearthstone with random people on the internet. So
Right, and even if I did want to play with my family, a Post-it note would work better. Like, cool. I'm gonna write down my bans because this doesn't like. Yeah, I don't understand. Like the Ixar didn't reference it here, but when the beta was announced, they referenced like, oh yeah, it's going to it will scale up to a lot of players, but we want it to be for like you and a couple friends. And I'm like, well, I don't need help making competition between me and a couple friends.
Yeah, because it should be an organizational tool above all else, right? And you don't really need help organizing 4 to 8 players. You need help organizing 128 players or 256 players. That's where organizational headaches come in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, I do understand what Ixar is trying to say, saying that features take time and that we need to test things and build things, and I get that. What I don't understand is why they chose the starting point that they chose. I think that they tried to make it for people who wanted a casual and fun tournament experience and not people who wanted a more challenging and competitive tournament experience or an organizational experience. And I don't think that that was the right goal, the right starting point. And I'm really, really worried that what's going to happen is because a lot of these features, like some of the most hardcore Hearthstone players who are going to be the ones who are actually going to help play this in beta and help test this, I feel like they're not going to be interested because it doesn't do the things that they want it to do. And as a result of that, Blizzard's going to go, you guys said you wanted tournament mode, but no one's playing it. So obviously you don't really want it. And then they're going to slow development on it because not enough people are playing it. And that's my biggest kind of worry about this, is that they're not going to get the response in beta and they're going to drop it.
I share those concerns to a certain degree. On the flip side, I think it would be cool if their aim was to get more feedback from less obvious pockets of the community. If their goal really is, let's make this as simple of a barrier to entry as possible by making it the most straightforward version of a tournament mode you can, so that we get people playing that maybe wouldn't be interested in a tournament feature otherwise. That's cool. What I would add to that is we need to add feedback into the game then, if that is their goal, because I don't think players who would be averse to that in the first place, at least a large majority of them, are the type that are going to email you or show up to your forums or even comment on the Reddit.
Yeah, and they haven't told us how, because that was literally the question that I asked Peter on that he kind of danced around last week. I said, like, okay, what's the best way for us to give you feedback then? And nothing. So, maybe they're going to put some sort of a give us feedback thing into the game. That's how it works in World of Warcraft. If you're currently playing in the beta, after every quest, there's a little text box at the bottom where you can say, like, this worked, this didn't, this bugged out. Like, as you're in the beta, they are actively asking you for feedback in game. Maybe they will implement something like that in the Hearthstone beta, because this is the first thing. We don't have a PTR. So this is the first thing that we're really getting to test in beta. So I hope, other than obviously the whole game way back when the game was in beta, but normally we don't get to test features ahead of time. So we haven't ever seen them with a live game and a feature that we're testing in the same space. So maybe we'll get an in-client feedback reporter thingy. Technical term.
Yeah, Heroes has that too in their live game. Like it's a star rating system though. It doesn't go beyond that.
Yeah.
But it's still a some way
still
of
in-game feedback,
informing them. Yeah, exactly, of your opinion of what just transpired.
Yeah.
So,
which is also key, because sometimes I'll come out of a quick match where I've been playing by myself and it's like, please rate the cooperation of your teammates, and I'm like, 1, terrible, awful, horrible, bad.
And then you have really good experiences and you give them 5 stars.
Exactly. Yeah. My rating system is very swingy. It's either a 1 or a 5. I don't often give 3s.
My favorite is the connection, because if I have even a slight connection hiccup, it's a 1. There's no granularity to my opinion of the connection to the game. It's either perfect or it hiccuped once, caused me a death, and I blame the entire loss on that connection hiccup. But
yeah, you are right when it comes to feedback. I think in-client feedback will be really important. You want to kind of take the barrier to entry away as much as you possibly can, and especially where a lot of Hearthstone players don't necessarily play other Blizzard games, they're maybe not used to going to forums. They're maybe not used to using some of these other tools. So I think, allowing them to just stay in Hearthstone and have that be your ecosystem for feedback is probably the best idea. But I think it'll probably come down to forums. I think that's where they're going to be looking for the feedback. And I'm going to throw this out there because we hear it all the time from the Warcraft devs who actually come out and talk to us a lot. But the Warcraft devs always tell us that basically when you're giving feedback in one way or another, just saying that you hate something isn't actually helpful. You have to say, I play this class, I do this thing, and it feels bad because is a much better response. So when we are giving feedback about tournament mode, which I hope everyone who's listening to the sound of my voice right now gets in there and tells them that we need bans in tournament mode, when you're doing that, make sure that you're still respectful and not just saying, this isn't the tournament mode I asked for, because that's not going to help them. And not that they won't read it, but it's definitely the kind of feedback that's going to get chucked off to the side.
Yep. That being said, and this isn't directed at Dean or Peter, but at Team 5 as a whole, because you all sound like robots when you reply about tournament mode. We've heard this before. Talk to us.
Yes.
All right. What's happening in HCT, Joss? Because playoffs have kicked off, and we have a bunch of names I've never heard of that are heading to the Summer Championship.
Really? Oh my God. Okay. So, we've got Dog. You've heard of Dog.
Yes. Dog
Okay.
was not who I was referring to.
I know, just messing with you. So we have Dog, Killing All Day, Raze, and Nalguinan, who have qualified for the Summer Championships out of the American HCT playoffs that happened this last weekend. They seem to go off without a hitch. I saw a couple of different innkeepers that I follow on Twitter who were talking about how much smoother it was this time. Basically, what they did this year is they condensed the amount of playoff locations. So I believe there was only one in Canada, and there was 4 or 5 across the states, and then some down in Latin America and South America. So they've really condensed the amount of playoff locations, and that seems to have helped a lot of the admin issues and a lot of the connection issues that they had in past years. So it seemed like this was a lot smoother than it has been in the past. The other big change that we had this year, and it happened obviously in Europe last weekend as well, is that from the Swiss stage, we went into 2 double elimination groups instead of playing all the way through and getting a winner, because in the end, who won didn't matter. The top 4 still went on to the championships. Right. So we were playing a whole bunch of games that had no stakes at the end of the day. So what they decided to do instead was this double elimination bracket of the top 8 players. And that way, if you'd gone through Swiss and come out like Fibonacci 7-0, then you weren't just eliminated right off the bat in the quarterfinals, which to me as a viewer felt a whole lot better. We ended up with kind of 4 winners at the end of the day, but I'd rather that than, having people go undefeated in Swiss and then getting kicked out in their first game. So I think that was a huge change that went off really, really well, at least from a viewer standpoint. I'm sure the players felt a lot better about it too. Yeah.
And while Fibonacci is still the saddest story of, I think, the entire tournament, because he ran through the Swiss section completely undefeated. He was the only player to hit 7-0. He still did not win in the group stage. You're right. He lost his first round against Killing All Day, but he had another chance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Which last year he wouldn't have had that other chance. So I think that this is a great change. And then in terms of the actual players that made it through, Dog and Killing All Day are Americans. Then we've got Raze, who is Brazilian, and then Nalguinan, who comes from Argentina. So we had good representation. I was really sad because we had 2 Canadians make it to the top 8, and neither one of them made it through. And that made me so sad. But we do have 2 representatives from North America, 2 representatives from South America. So it's a nice kind of balance there, I guess. In terms of the Americas region, it's really nice to see some of the South American players start to get some recognition and make it through to these championships. Race has done a lot. He's basically competed mostly in the Copa circuit. So he's come either somewhere between 1st and 4th in, I think, 4 Copa championships, I believe. So he has been a very consistent performer from the Brazilian side of things. And I think Race was even on the Brazilian team for Global Games last year. So you would have seen him there too. I'm pretty sure Now Guden was on Argentina's team as well. So, and again, Now Guden obviously came up, has played a lot through the Copa tournaments as well. So, yeah, that's kind of very brief and basic history of where those guys come from. They've also had, I believe, more Now Guden than Race specifically, but I think Now Guden has also had a couple of pretty high finishes when it comes to DreamHack events. So, possibly lesser known because the South America scene has developed a little bit later on than the NA and EU scenes did, in terms of, like, it was kind of more on the same level as, I would say, APAC. A lot of players seem to kind of sneak up on people because those scenes aren't necessarily getting the same sort of exposure, shall we say, as a lot of the, like, US players and a lot of the EU players. So yeah, but it's nice to see that we're getting a little bit more representation coming out of NA this year.
Yeah, you're right. Now Guden looks like he had 2 top 4 finishes in 2 very recent Copas. He was in the top 12 for last year's Summer Championship.
Yeah. But we also had, I mean, this top 8 for the Americas HCT playoffs was, like, super, super stacked. We had, you know, like, Muzzy just barely missing out. We had, you know, like I mentioned, Jordude and Fibonacci, the 2 Canadians, barely missing out. But even then, like, looking down the list of, like, the top 32, there were so many awesome players who just missed the cut. And I'm just like, this is a really good time for Hearthstone right now, guys. It's a really good time. Yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of shakeups.
Mm-hmm. But still a lot of consistent talent. Like Terrence M was in that list. I just had it up in front of me and now I've closed it like an idiot.
Terrence M went 4-3. I mean, Strife Crow also went 4-3. Zalay.
Yeah, there were a lot of APX Void is another one. Teray. Lots of names that we've seen there before that are Perna is another one. Lots of really good records in there, and they'll, at least I believe, top 32 still got points, so they'll have some points going through into season 2, or yeah, I guess they're calling it season 2. Yes. Anyways, this next 3-month chunk of Hearthstone.
Right. So cool. Next playoffs is Asia.
Yeah, APAC is this weekend. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
DreamHack Tours is also this weekend.
Yes, it is. A lot of Hearthstone to watch this weekend.
Yes.
A lot of Hearthstone. Before we move into strategy and talk about Tempo Mage, Jocelyn, we have a sponsor to thank today, awaytravel.com/TAC. They are back. Away Luggage, the makers of the nicest damn piece of luggage I have ever owned by a wide margin.
Yep, you can kick it around and it's totally fine.
Not that,
because I'm a gigantic klutz and I kick and throw things by accident all the time.
I was about to ask, do you like soccer dribble your freaking roller luggage down the airport?
No, it's more like I cut corners too close and don't realize my luggage is on the ground and then like stub my toe and kick it across the room. That's
okay.
Just life.
I was thinking like you don't think like a semi-truck and you make 2 tight turns and you just drag that sucker around a wall corner.
Oh, no. It's like me rushing around trying to pack and then cutting corners too close and kicking it across the room. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we very much enjoy our away travel carry-ons. They have internal batteries, which means we get to charge whatever we're playing Hearthstone on. I can charge my friggin' Switch, which I still only own like 3 games for, but I went to my brother's this weekend and stole his Mario game, so I'm going to finally play Odyssey.
Oh, it's a good one.
I've heard it's very good. Also grab Mario Kart because at some point I got to stop playing Forza and just throw banana peels at people. But
yep.
I get to not sit next to people and get sick before I get on the airplane waiting for my flight. I can just sit in the corner with my piece of luggage, charging my devices on my carry-on. It's also remarkably light. It is so light. It actually fits in overhead bins, even in the tiny planes that they send me to Atlanta in. Literally, the smallest planes you've ever seen that are still somehow passenger liners.
Those make me so nervous, man. The ones that have just like 2 seats down either side of one aisle.
Yep.
Too small.
Yeah, I like my older the carry-ons. I've had issues fitting up there, and my away it fits. It totally fits. And I'm going to New York this weekend, and I'm going to be packing my away luggage. And it's just one less thing I got to worry about. So check them out at awaytravel.com/TAC. If you use the offer code TAC at checkout, again, TAC, you will get $20 off your order. They're great. Both carry-ons, they have the two sizes, just the carry-on and the bigger carry-on. They both have internal batteries, so you can charge. They have a TSA-approved combination lock. They have an interior pressure system, or as Jocelyn calls it,
the smoosher, the scoosher.
the smooshing system is what you usually, but I like scoosher. Why not?
I make up too many words. I can't remember which ones I use for what.
I'm not sure what scooshing means. But anyway, so they've also got free shipping within the 48 lower states, a 100-day return policy, and a lifetime warranty. So go check them out. Get $20 off a suitcase by going to awaytravel.com/TAC and entering the code TAC at checkout. We thank them for their support. We thank you for going to that website and telling them we sent you. And now we're going to talk about some Tempo Mage.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay.
Tempo Mage is pretty popular right now. We saw quite a bit of it brought to that Swiss round tournament we just discussed. You're probably seeing quite a bit of it on ladder right now, and that is because it has some pretty solid matchups. It also has some you need to watch out for, and we're about to talk about that. But the big thing is that it's rather favored against Taunt Druid, not so much against Spiteful, but it's at least favored against half of the Druids running out there. Well, not quite, not perfectly half, but you get the point there. But the big one, and our bias is showing again, favored against all the Warlocks. All of them. All of the Warlocks that you could possibly go up against. So that was a very loud car going past my house. I don't know what that was.
Oh, I was like, so, and you're looking over your shoulder. I'm like, what is happening?
It sounded like something was about to come through my window. Sorry. Whatever the case is. Favored against Warlocks. You've been playing much Tempo Mage since the Witchwood switch was flipped, Joss?
I've mostly been playing Paladin, but I will say that the Tempo Mage, it's still pretty fun. There have been some switches since the change. I didn't really love it. It's actually one of the decks that I ended up taking to HCT Toronto. And there's been some changes since then with the rotation from Witchwood. And I haven't played too much of it since the changes. I played a little bit today, but playing with Archmage Antonidas again is super fun. I really, really like making free fireballs. Well, not free, but like bonus ones.
You get the idea. You have to work for those free fireballs, but it's worth putting in the work. It's worth putting in the work. I'm going to just, break the fourth wall. Joss, would you like to add Jerry to the call? Because he must be watching because he's like, dude, I'm free. I can talk Tempo Mage.
Yes, we should definitely bring him in because he's the one who wanted to do the deck in the first place.
So once he gets in here, I'll get the overlay cleaned up. But Justin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, friends. Hi, how are you guys?
Yay!
Oh, it's the internet's own Justin Robert Young, everybody. If you somehow have never heard him on the show, he is, as we refer to, Dills' death rattle when Dills isn't here. Usually Justin is.
I heard Dills wasn't here, and I was summoned. I didn't even know what was happening. I just all of a sudden popped up.
Yep. But
all right. So, Tempo Mage. I, oddly enough, have not played with this deck. I played with two different versions, either of which involved Archmage.
So you were playing some early Witchwood Tempo Mages.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that this had. I thought I had pulled one of the top ones from Disguised Toast, but that one, the one that I was most recently playing with, didn't even have Pyroblast. It relied more on some of the random secrets and stuff like that, and you just naturally being able to draw through your deck a little bit more.
I mean, I will say I've been running this exact list, and I've won more games without Antonidas than I have with, and not because he didn't work, but just because I didn't draw him and I won anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that you're so often, specifically with the meta that we have now and playing against Paladin, you're using a lot of your low-cost spells early on just to clear the board to make sure that they don't get that crazy buff turn that you don't have a lot of the more traditional kind of Archmage just random get it out there so you can at least cash in the fireballs for the one turn he's on the board.
I love this. It's like you're teaming me up, man, because what I was about to talk about is a thing that I do like about Antonidas is the fact that you have all these low-cost spells, and while they are fantastic in the beginning of the game, you don't always draw them in the beginning of game. So Antonidas adds value to these low-cost spells if you draw them late.
That is true, and Lodvar in the chat points out something about this deck that I think is unconscionable. You need to have Cinderstorm in any Tempo Mage deck. That card, specifically in a world where Paladins can throw 50 dudes on the board for like three costs, like you have to have that card in there just to clear things up.
Well, and I think that that's kind of key to the deck, though, right? Like, there's almost like two different versions right now. One that's kind of tech to beat Paladin, which is a bad matchup anyways, and one that's tech, which I think this one is, to beat Warlock. Like, the reason that you have Antonidas and you need more fireballs, the reason that you need a Pyroblast is because Warlocks heal so damn much and you can't get your minion damage through. So I think that it just kind of depends what you're facing on ladder. If you go with, needing more fireballs and needing that end game damage, or if you need things like tools like Cinderstorm to keep the board clear early on. But I feel like I'm leaning towards Antonidas and Pyroblast a little bit more than Cinderstorms, only because if you put the Cinderstorms in your deck, you're trying to make your matchup against Paladin a little bit better. Whereas, like, it's still going to be a bad matchup. Like, if you come up against Paladin as Tempo Mage, you're probably just going to lose. So why put Cinderstorms in, which aren't as effective against Warlock, where, like, the Pyroblast might be the thing that puts you over the edge in the Warlock matchup?
Here's why. Because I think that Cinderstorm is just for Paladin. If you only have, oftentimes before the Warlock, they can just Void Lord you to death. If there's just the Void Lord and their face, and Cinderstorm is just 50-50ing for 5 damage, a lot of time that can get you to where you need to go without necessarily spreading out all over the place. So I found Cinderstorm in the deck that I was playing that didn't have Archmage. I was still the reason why I kept playing Tempo Mage was because it was the only thing that could do direct damage over Void Lords, and therefore end the Warlock nightmare for which has plagued this meta.
Okay, so there's one that I think might kind of split the difference here, because Justin, you said you were also not playing with Pyroblast. There is the second most played Tempo Mage on HS Replay. Does not have Antonidas, but it does have Pyroblast, but it does have Cinderstorm. And it has a phenomenal win rate against Warlock and a slightly better, which is to say still bad, but a better win rate against Paladin.
Yeah,
I'm not saying Cinderstorm's a bad card necessarily. I just think it's more to help you in a matchup that's going to be bad regardless, versus Archmage, which is like shoring up your win rate against Warlock. I just want to win against Warlock always. Like that's my goal. It's just F them all.
That's it. We are in here for one thing and one thing only.
Like, if I lose to a Paladin, fine. If I lose to a Warlock, I'm like, oh, table flip, quit the game, uninstall.
Yeah. No, I am totally with you. But really, I think no matter what, the strength of this deck is so much just goes over the top to the face. And that's, I hope that this gets more popular. Although I've seen it become more popular because I've noticed a lot more teching of weapon destroying cards like Harrison. I've seen a lot more. The ooze that knocks out your weapon that I'm forgetting right now. I've seen those. Yeah, that's it. I've seen those more because Alunth is just such a powerful card. The fact that you are just drawing through your entire deck is so dope.
Yeah, between that and Skull of Minari, for sure. There's a lot of need for weapon hate right now.
Yeah. Oh my God, they don't even need to choose between Lackey and Minari now.
Yeah.
After the change.
But we should talk a little bit about like what actually has changed with these Tempo Mage decks. So we've got Vexcrow, which I actually really enjoy. So it's the 4-mana 3/3 beast that whenever you cast a spell, you summon a random 2-cost minion. With all the cheap spells in this deck, you've got Arcane Missiles, Breath of Cindergrosa, Mirror Image even, which Mirror Image we haven't seen in Mage decks for a while. You can just be spitting out random 2-mana minions, and it makes gives you more of a board back, which I think is awesome. Especially, this is another thing that I think is helpful in the Paladin matchup, right? Giving you more things on board to help you do a little bit of control.
Yeah, it's really the only thing in here that can fight for the board besides things like missiles and Cinderstorm.
Yeah.
But it's the only thing that fights for that board by actually building a board versus trying to remove theirs.
Yes.
Yeah, Vexgrow's fun as hell. And
Vexgrow is hilarious. It is awesome to just randomly pop out those low cost minions. Amani Agent is something that you're seeing a lot in these decks here too, as they get continued to be tech to death.
Amani
What's that one?
Agent?
Or yeah, whatever.
You mean Berserker?
The Berserker?
Berserker. Wait,
Yeah.
is that, yeah, Amani Berserker. Sorry,
The 2/3 with the Enrage?
that's it.
Yes. I was like, Amani Agent, what is this?
I was like, is this something?
Somebody's called it that to me, and I haven't been able to get that out of my head.
Hey, I would just assumed, is that some card that came out 3 expansions ago that no one found a use for until now? I believe it.
Amani Berserker. Sorry.
I'm also the guy that still calls Void Lord Void Caller, so. Whatever the yeah, Berserker's been popping up recently. I don't really know where it came from, but I'm
Even
just
in
like,
Paladin.
yeah. I've been I saw it come off of Call to Arms multiple times from this weekend up until today. I'm just like, okay, it works actually. It can certainly run away if you don't have a way to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that it's just kind of fallen into this soft spot in the meta where there's just not a lot of ways that you can easily deal with it, and yeah, that's just where it's become popular.
Yeah.
Well, and it's always been great in Mage just because you have the ability to, if it survives, just ping it the next turn, and then all of a sudden it's
Boom.
5 damage. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I'll tell you, the Tempo Mage deck really rocked and rolled for me at the very beginning of this month, but boy, did it cool off pretty fast up around the 10 through 6 ranks. Things were, because ultimately it's one of those decks where if you can get rolling, I mean, it's not. It's not just a clever name, Tempo Mage. If you can get that beat going, then you are going to rock and roll all night. And if they got answers for you, boy, does it suck to slowly twist in the wind and die.
Yeah.
And it's even tricky now too. I found I had a couple matchups against Druid, and it's like people are also starting to run, because Paladin is so rampant, mind control tech. So it's like, you think you've got a super awesome play, and then all of a sudden you mirror image, and then they're stealing your stuff, and you're like, oh man. So I find like a lot of people seem to be punishing Mage in many, many different fun ways.
Yeah.
I haven't had an issue with mind control tech in my plays, but I've also been seeing a weird amount of priests, so my board's just dead. Like, and they're not running MC tech, so and if they were, it wouldn't matter because they're doing Duskbreaker. But yeah, I haven't had run too many MC tech issues with this particular Mage deck, but yeah, I've certainly been rolling them in my Spiteful Druid, so I know what you're talking about. But yeah,
So
And I mean, in
Sorry,
terms of actually playing the deck, it hasn't changed all that much. Like, there's a couple of different tools, but you're still kind of trying to do the same thing, right? Like, you obviously always want your mana worm, but then from there, it's still the same sort of a start as it was pre-rotation, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's look, try to get your early minions out there. Get your arcanologists, get your secrets as early as possible to continue to just keep rocking and rolling, and hopefully, if you can, get your Alunth on 6 or 5 if possible, and just face. Life Drinker has been a huge addition to this deck, though. I will say that yet another way to go over the top. In all the different versions of it. Actually, is it in here? Is Life Drinker?
It's not in this deck, but I'm as I'm perusing HS Replay, the other decks that are almost as popular, almost as high of a win rate, that look to be more in line with what you're playing, Justin, are running at least one of Life Drinker. One of them's running 2.
The other one is Arcane Keysmith. which the deck that I just started playing that does not have Pyroblast does run 2 of. Although, to be honest, I played a little bit of it and not in love with it. I don't know. I kind of feel like I need Pyroblast.
I don't know about the Arcane Keysmith. Yeah.
10 damage.
That one I'm not as sold on. Life Drinker, I will concede, but you got to stop coming in here with things that prove Jocelyn right. I just did a Westworld spoiler with her earlier, and she was right about something in there. Like I can't do it anymore.
Man, I did. The biggest spoiler about Westworld is that it's good now, as opposed to before when it was bad.
Oh, get out! Get out! I loved it. I loved season 1.
Garrett just sees that point and he's like, "It didn't look like anything to me."
Stick to the subject.
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, those are the big keys. I don't know exactly how much I love Arcane Keysmith, having played with it in this deck a little bit, just because I don't know if right now, aside from just getting other counter spells to get a third counter spell, which you have a shot to pull off a Primordial Glyph anyway, that there's really any secrets that really, really, really benefit you. You know, we're not in a super crazy, like, you know, buff meta where having other secrets that would deflect, deflect the spell onto, what is that one? This is my biggest problem. Spellbender. Spellbender is something that in a different meta, or if we see more of those cards kind of come in, that maybe either taking that in or being able to randomly get it off Arcane Keysmith would be okay. But right now, I don't know exactly how hot it is.
Yeah,
I think had Ice Block not rotated, then potentially that Keysmith would have been better in Tempo Mage, and I think that's why Life Drinker in particular has found a spot, because it's not even necessarily the 3 damage to face, although more reach in this deck is always going to be good, but it's also like, because you can't get your free turn anymore, you do kind of need a little bit of self-healing in some cases, because there have been games that I've won where I'm on, anywhere from 2 to, 7 or 8 health. Like, you're usually sub 10 just by the way this deck works, because you're trying to burn your opponent so quickly. So any tool that helps you deal damage and heal at the same time to try to buy that extra turn now that you don't have Ice Block, I think is going to be really, really helpful in this deck.
Oh my God, you guys, I miss Ice Block so much.
I think you're the only person.
I
love it so much. It's just like an American Tale. I'm singing somewhere out there as it half fades to me in Ice Block.
Oh man, you don't like Westworld Season 1. You miss Ice Block. Why did I let you into this call?
Mistakes were made.
Major mistake.
Next you're gonna want to fight me about Rogue One again.
That's a fight long one. Although I am excited for Solo.
You're excited for Solo? Oh my God, that surprises me.
Makes one of us.
Yeah. Well,
I guess 2. Technically, 2. I guess Garrett's excited.
By excited for Solo, I decided to not buy tickets, and then Ashley said she wanted to go, so we bought tickets. That's how excited I am.
So you're hyping yourself up so that you don't just huff and puff all the way to the theater.
I feel like I'm in a more healthy position. And staying on, why are you? Now you distracted me.
It's because he wants to talk Star Wars. Garrett always wants to talk Star Wars.
I'll go on digressions. Like, I do 70,000 shows, so like I could literally just fade into any one of them at any moment if I don't constantly keep talking about.
Let's split our listener base and start talking about politics, Justin.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Okay. So anyway, Trump's tweet about ZTE is a huge ramification.
All right, we're done with that. I think we've I think we're done with Tempo Mage. You should definitely try it if you have not already. It is certainly not wildly off the beaten path of popular decks, but it is not Paladin, it is not Warlock, it is not Druid. So if you want something with a real solid win rate,
yeah, and look. Also, just the tempo of the games. I mean, these matches, you kind of know that you know where the writing on the wall is fairly fast. So a lot of the good decks now, take these games a little bit further in. So if you want a good mobile deck is Tempo Mage. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist, and also it'll probably be done by the time your next subway stop comes up.
Average 8 turns according to HS Replay.
Yeah.
So I dig. I've been enjoying it, and I was never a huge Mage player, so check it out. I'll add some more links to the other deck lists we were talking about in here, but I'm not blowing anyone's minds. If you go to HS Replay, you hit Mage and you sort by games played. I'm literally just moving down the line as long as it has a positive win rate. So go take a look. Before we move into emails and wrap the show up, let's thank our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. Hey, if you enjoy the Angry Chicken, I know it's free, and don't worry, it's going to stay free. Always going to come out on Tuesdays, unless we tell you, it's a BlizzCon week or something. It's going to come out a different day. But if you would like to opt in to give us $1 an episode, $2 an episode, whatever works for you, we would really appreciate it. And patreon.com/TAC is the best way to do that. On this week's episode, we want to thank Cade C, Tim E, and Ryan W. Thank you very much for your support of the Angry Chicken. Now, let's crack open that mailbag.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, did you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Brandon writes in and says, "Hey, Tac, I was watching HCT Europe this weekend, and during one of the matches, a player rolled an 8/8 off their Spiteful Summoner on turn 6. The casters made a pretty big deal about how the summoned minion was a low roll and wasn't what the player was looking for. Chat had a field day with this comment, but the casters were spot on. How have we gotten to the point that putting a 4/4 and an 8/8 into play on turn 6 is a disappointing play? This is concerning to say the least. Where does Hearthstone go from here? Cheers!" And the answer is making that cost 7 mana.
Yeah, so this is the email that I was talking about earlier on where talking about Spiteful Summoner and talking about how the low rolls now for Druids specifically are 8/8s, which is crazy. and yeah, how the game in general seems to have gotten a little bit more overpowered. Like, I mean, we've talked a little bit about power creep in the past in terms of specific cards, but it does seem kind of crazy that now we're in a space where 12/12 of stats on turn 6 is the bad outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's relative though. I mean, and I think you're starting to you touched on it there, which is like overall we're powerful. Like, that's not that great because nothing happened other than putting stats into play. I mean, we are so accustomed to in Hearthstone from the very beginning, like, good cards were cards that did something the turn you played it. And yes, while playing a 4/4 that summons a larger minion is technically doing something, it's not actually impacting the board.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where my head is at. And in terms of power creep, it's worth bringing up again that we don't have the most. We have a semi-linear power creep, it feels like. Again, we're only going off of 2 standard rotations that have been completed so far, but in the 2 standard rotations that have happened, it seems like our power creep goes up to the final expansion of a certain standard year, and then begin the new standard year, and the first set of the new year actually has pretty underpowered cards. And that's certainly what we saw with Witchwood, and that's what we saw last year after the Year of the Mammoth kicked off. So
we're going to have to wait until the 3rd expansion of this year to get something on par with Spiteful Summoner.
Well, I'm of 2 minds with that because last year for Year of the Mammoth and the year before it, Year of the Kraken with Old Gods, the meta was shaken up pretty drastically, even though the cards that were being introduced were lower power, right? The meta has not been shaken that drastically. This is I would say that is the biggest outlier with what's happening here at the beginning of the standard year. Is that Paladin is still on top. Warlock is still on top. Druid is more on top than they were, but they weren't exactly hurting back in the days of Jade.
Understatement.
Yeah. Exactly. And by the way, I don't like Jades. So even if I love Ice Block, at least I'm not double canceling.
That's all right. I've got you covered. I like Jades. So between the 2 of us, the internet hates us.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet. And Jocelyn's just going there being like, I don't miss Ice Block. I don't miss Jades. I do miss Warlocks not being around.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's okay as long as the relative power level is around this area, right? Like if 4/4, 8/8 came down and they're just like, Yep, it's always good. Doesn't matter because it's nothing that can answer a good Spiteful roll. That's a problem. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the archetypes that are, considered tier 1 playable right now have answers to most Spiteful rolls.
That what 12/12 can't be targeted?
Yes, that is the
Tyrantus.
the most difficult. And even then,
Yeah.
there are certain cards that can deal with it.
Yeah. But in terms of where Hearthstone goes from here, I do think you're right that like we'll see a slow ramp up of stuff, and I think that the biggest problem with this right now isn't even Spiteful. I think it's just that we didn't see the big changes really. Like you were mentioning, we still have Druid, we still have Paladin, we still have Warlock. The Warlock deck is exactly the same with like 1 or 2 cards exceptions because N'Zoth rotated. But I think that with the nerfs coming, that's when we're going to see the big changes, hopefully. I think that's obviously Witchwood's best chance to actually show up. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see how that all plays out. And I think depending on how that plays out, we might actually see Spiteful Druid fall off a little bit, maybe. But I think that, just in general, I want to see some changes and some innovation without Warlock being so oppressive. Maybe everything else then will feel more on par with what Spiteful can do.
Yeah,
Agree.
I agree. And it's getting a little more balanced with the mana change, so we'll kind of see how that shakes out. Jocelyn, I see you turned this email red, which means we're putting Justin on the spot and making him read our
Nice.
final email.
All right, Time Lord writes, greetings, my furious feathery fowls. It seems to me that Wild does not get the attention that it deserves. It naturally does not welcome new players with it having a bigger pool of cards. I have 2 things I would like to see implemented to make Wild more relevant. The first is obvious. Let us buy Wild packs in client. The service is to introduce new cards exclusive to Wild. The second is to introduce new cards exclusive to Wild. They do this all the times in card games like Magic the Gathering. Never heard of it. And I feel that I would inject some life into the format. I don't know how Team 5 would exactly implement this into Hearthstone, but I think it should be a topic of discussion. They have done this already with the Arena, where there are arena-specific cards, so why not Wild? Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
I mean, they pretty much have cards that are exclusive to Wild. They have a lot of cards that are exclusive to Wild. You just can't get them in game easily.
Well, it seems odd that he kind of made 2 points that seem to be counter to each other, right? Like, it's like, number one, it's hostile because there's a bigger pool of cards. So the answer is make more cards that are harder to get unless you're only buying packs that can affect you being in Wild. I do agree that it doesn't get the love that it deserves, but I almost wonder whether or not part of that is on Blizzard not shaping it as this is a place for the like grand masters, right? Like this is something that it should be more of a spectator, the best of the best that have all these cards and are putting together these crazy decks that you're never going to see anywhere else. That maybe there's a different way to showcase that than, I guess number one, having a more of a spotlight on it would help. But
You mean having more than one tournament a year?
maybe that.
I was going to say it's better than it has been because we did get a Wild championship, right? But it has nowhere near the weight behind it that HCT does.
You're right, Jocelyn. It is better than nothing at all for Wild.
Yes.
It is technically better than nothing. But I'm with you. I'm not with Time Lord. I mean, Wild for me, it's if you make it more accessible, it's not Wild. It's not as precious as it is. And what I do agree with is that it doesn't get the attention it deserves. So I think there's already it's barely precious to begin with. And to me, the only thing that is precious about it is that it is this kind of this archive of everything that has ever come from Hearthstone and everything that ever will be, all jam-packed together.
Yeah, well, I think with this email, the first point is like just make the cards more accessible because you can buy packs for Wild. Like those are all available now for real money purchase, but you can't do that in the client. So I think he means just kind of take that barrier of entry away because like most people don't even know that there's a Blizzard store website and that's where you have to go if you want to buy wild cards. Like,
it took me like 2 weeks to figure out how to go and buy them. Like, because I remember the announcement going out that you could buy it, and I kept going in the game, and I'm like, where the hell are they? Is it just and it didn't seem important enough for me to like put out a tweet.
All right, lie, I had no idea you could do it, and I would have been wrong if on my first guess on where to buy it, and I don't know if I would have a second guess. Assume that for some reason my mind was broken.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it just showing people that they can purchase cards for Wild at the same price as standard cards. I think that's a fine suggestion. If you can purchase them at all, you should be able to get them in Hearthstone.
Well, yeah, and I think the idea with Wild, even by giving it the name Wild, is for it to be fun, right? Explosive, unpredictable. And I don't know, beyond just pushing it in that direction instead of calling it something more boring like Legacy or that, there's not really a lot of follow through in the way that there's a lot of focus and attention on Standard. There's not like okay, this is, even if it's going to be once a year, let's do some like big money, like, have your decks, that are the craziest possible things, and maybe put more of a focus and spotlight on what kind of ingenuity comes out of this version of the game. Might be, I don't know, an idea.
Yeah. No, I really would just like more competition in Wild. Period. I mean, that's one of these days we're just gonna rip a Band-Aid off and do an entire episode about where we would like to see competition in Hearthstone go, because it's one of my biggest gripes with the game. And it's not. I'm not even sure I can say that it's a gripe with my game, or gripe with the game specifically, because Team 5 and Blizzard Esports seem extremely divided. There doesn't seem to be cohesion between the two teams, and there is an esports team and there is a Hearthstone team, and they're not necessarily intertwined. And there just seems to be a huge disconnect from how I play Hearthstone and what I'm watching when I go and watch Hearthstone. But pausing that conversation for right now, I would just like to see more Wild played professionally, and for it to be a bigger spectacle. And we're kind of retreading ground from, I think, years ago now, because Dills would always mention that there are, Magic tournaments that bring in the best of all the different formats, and I would like to see that in Hearthstone.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I know that all of my solutions revolve around professional wrestling, but I mean, what if you took Wild and like gave it like a belt, and like, so once a month you had, some kind of mechanic to have the champion be challenged by somebody else who's putting together crazy decks, and that would be, it would create an interesting conversation around what decks you would ban, right? And I think it would, because that's the idea. The fun idea about Wild is like, I'm not gonna see when I need a respite from Voidlord, Dude Paladin, that I go to Wild and I'm gonna see some crazy stuff. I'm gonna see cards that I haven't seen played in a while. I'm gonna have that mix of nostalgia and ingenuity, and I don't know. I feel like having some element of a soft kind of meta of like, all right, well, here's what the champion's playing, so let's think of things that would combat that. Just a little bit of structure would go a long way for Wild.
It would also be really nice to not follow the same structure as Standard, just so if you do want to watch competitive Hearthstone, you're not just watching HCT 2.0 or 1.5 or whatever the hell. Like, if you're watching a totally different format with like a King of the Hill sort of a thing, instead of just this like everyone's competing for points and then we go through a Swiss tournament and then we all fall asleep, like, if there's actually something going on that makes it different and interesting and a little more wild, I think that would do a lot for the format, because just running another tournament is just running another tournament. And exactly. I mean, I don't even think that many people were really paying attention to the Wild tournament. I think I know like one guy who made it far in both who made it far in the Wild tournament because he's also a very competitive Standard player. So like that was the story, is like, whoa, look at Bailey, he's doing both. That's amazing. And it's like, that's the story. And I don't want that to be the story. I want the story to be, look at these cool, crazy, wild things.
Exactly. Or like, because I think deck building is such a bigger part of Wild than it would even be of Standard, because Standard is about teching to exactly where you believe that meta is going to be and where those competitive decks are. Wild can be, no, I'm doing something that's totally different. Like, then maybe create, it's like 10 decks and you can only play one game with each, or maybe when you beat somebody, you can take one of their decks if you really like it or something like that. Just go crazy. Do wild, nutty things.
What about if you assigned like values to cards or something? So like the more often a card shows up, the lower its value. If you make something really crazy and outside the box, like you have some sort of value that can be assigned to your deck that kind of corresponds to it's how crazy and out there your build is. And then if you win in a tournament, you like multiply the win by the value of your deck or something crazy and do all kinds of cool things that reward deck building more directly. Because otherwise, I mean, Hearthstone has always worked this way, and as long as we're still doing the same sort of tournaments, will always work this way, where, like the best decks are figured out, the meta's figured out, there's certain lineups that work, and those lineups generally do a rock, paper, scissors thing, because individual players are never rewarded for deck building. So if there's a way to say, like, oh, you have super crazy decks, your decks are powerful but very standard, and then if you win with the super crazy stuff, you get bonus rewards in however the competitive scene works out to be, I think that could be super cool too.
Man, that idea sounded really cool, but considering Garrett and I both went to schools in Florida, I think there was a lot of math that I don't
my counterpoint to that is I am all for whatever gets us the most unique decks, but that does not seem conducive to an audience understanding the competition.
Yeah.
But you want to know
cares?
Here's what I am for with Joss's idea. If it rewards people getting really into it, because that's what I think is an issue with Wild right now, is that it is such a blob that there's no real hook. Even making a tournament is like, okay, well, I guess there's a few streamers that primarily stream Wild, but at this point, to be honest with you, I'd almost think competitive arena would be a more effective thing, because that has such a defined structure that you can appreciate the artistry of it because you can recognize its constraints.
Are you trying to like just make me a permanent grumpy Gus throughout the course of this whole episode? Because yes, Justin, that would be great. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be wonderful if they took Arena seriously on Team 5?
I'm just trying to stir things up after you guys had the invisible blizzard gun to your head during the interview.
You saw that, eh?
It was just really weird that you had the shadow of a blizzard-shaped revolver just off on the side.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
No, I thought it was really, really good interview.
If that's your read on me not yelling, that's a bunch of bullshit to the answers about tournament mode. And
it's never you guys. It's always the people that you're interviewing that are understanding that. Listen, whatever I say, I'm going to have to write a book report on exactly what I said every syllable.
That's how it feels, right? And we actually got a lot of traction, a lot of conversation happening in the subreddit this week about our interview with Peter Whalen. And one of the comments, and this isn't me going on tirade, this comment didn't bother me at all, but one of them was, I think they might have been being polite. And to a certain degree, we are. But for me, in my head, the reason I don't viciously go after a Team 5 dev when the answer to my question is boring isn't that I'm trying to be polite. It's that I don't even it's coming down. It's from Team 5. These answers, a lot of them are rehearsed. I mean, we're talking about what the Ixar's comments about the tournament beta earlier. It sounds like a broken record. I've heard 5 different Team 5 employees give the same statement that Ixar gave.
Yeah. Look, I think my favorite, and I forget even what podcast it was. It was way, way, way back in the day, but it was a tech reporter talking about interviewing people from Apple and Google and stuff like that. I think it was Apple in this case. But they just get this look in their eye whenever you're on to what is very obviously the rich vein of interrogation that's going to lead to something interesting. There's just this look that just transmits, please don't do this to me. Please, because I might say something and it might be really interesting, and it might be something that makes news, and that means that there is like a Iron Maiden and a torture rack that is kept somewhere on campus.
I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad.
I don't think it's that bad. No, but obviously, look, they got a structure for a reason. They have an approval process for a reason. If you've ever done interviews like that, I think you guys did as exemplary of a job as is humanly possible. But as somebody who has done interviews like that before, you just know whenever the answer ends and there's no cross chatter, which is really like the only place that you're ever really going to get something like interesting and fun. You're just like, oh, okay. Approved question number 3.
Yep.
What did you think about Sun?
Yeah. I mean, we asked those questions not necessarily because we expect an answer, but because it's the through line on this show. The things we talk about the most is competitive arena and tournament mode. So we were just hoping to hear some out of that, and whether or not you're happy with the answers. It's to me rad that they send someone like Peter Whalen on the show to give what I don't think anyone on Team 5 was expecting, like, yeah, they're going to be jazzed with these answers. It's going to be wonderful. But they're giving us honest answers and the answers that they can give us at the time.
And by the way, in their defense, 100%, considering what reactions come from when anybody says anything, just even from an expectation management perspective, you can understand them wanting to walk very, 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 very carefully. So somebody isn't like, well, back on the Angry Chicken episode, whatever, you said this, that, and the other, and now here's my 9,000 word Reddit post about it.
Yeah.
Listen,
even with the answers that we did get, I mean, we started a storm on the main Hearthstone Reddit about tournament mode and a storm over on the Arena subreddit about the fact that there's one dude in charge of micro adjustments. The Arena went... So, I mean, yeah, you're right about Team 5 or anyone in that kind of a situation. Like, they have to walk a real fine line, because I'm sure at the time Peter was like, oh, I can tell them about the micro adjustment guy. He's so smart. Look at the data. Like, he does all these cool things. And then the Arena community gets a hold of it and goes, there's one guy?
There's only one guy!
Yeah. So not, oh my God, this one guy is so smart and good, but there's only one of him, and that's a huge problem. So, you never really know what the community is really going to latch onto. So yeah, they have to play it very safe.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to me, like, that wasn't the reaction. The reaction I had was like, oh, cool. I think it's rad that somebody's, like, main job is this. The only negative reaction I had was, just put out the spreadsheet. Who gives a crap? Like, that was good. That was kind of that's like my, nerd reaction. But, yeah, do you expect, really, Arena folks, do you really expect a whole team to be dedicated to that?
I think they do expect an Arena team, and I think that they have every right to expect an Arena team.
I don't know. I guess, again, for me, like, it's not competitive. I just don't see it as a competitive mode, and it's more of a knock against Team 5's support of Arena. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of what I expected. It was in line. Like, I was actually surprised it wasn't just someone's side job.
Yeah, the fact that there is one dude dedicated to micro adjustments is actually a good thing. Like, at least they got one.
Who's on the Arena side hustle this month? It's like it's the person who has to empty the trash cans at a restaurant. I
don't think it was that bad. I thought I was going the route of like, all right, let's just bring up everybody's Hearthstone stats. Okay, Jansen, you played the most Arena this month. It goes to you. Like, that's kind of what I expected, but to me, it's a positive thing that there's a dedicated. And
also, who knows? I mean, like how many people is too many people or too less people, right? I mean, I think that you can fairly criticize or laud Team 5 for the result. Like, Arena isn't where I would like to play more if these things were done, and then you can assign, okay, well then manpower is a constraining issue there. But in general, if everything was running fine and you found out that it was and that all of Team 5 was 2 people and then the mannequins from Home Alone as they went across the window, then you'd be like, okay, cool, whatever. I guess it only takes 2 people to run Hearthstone.
To me, it's I don't know. I find it interesting. What I really want to know the answer to, and I know we'll never get it to, is I want to know how the profits are divvied up within Blizzard, because a lot of it, we always get the answer that it basically comes down to manpower, right? And Hearthstone.
I wonder. Now that you mention that, if does Hearthstone money go to Hearthstone? And
I don't think so. It's not that 1-to-1.
To the central fund, right? And
it's all Activision Blizzard at the end of the day. They don't do an earnings call for Hearthstone investors. They do an earnings call for Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, but it's not I wonder. That is a good question. How proportional?
Yeah, and that's
questions that we will never get answers to.
Yeah, I want to know how much of my Hearthstone money is going into Call of freaking Duty.
Now we're gonna get into a fight. Let's really stir up Reddit.
Yeah, but no, that's to me. That's where I think the actual scandal is. If you wanna put on your scandal pants, the scandal is
scandal meter at the bottom.
Yeah. That's in my brain. That's there's no way Hearthstone is getting back into it as much as it is creating for its company. If the answers we always get to features is, we got to make a priority call. We don't have enough people to do all of this stuff. Tournament mode is coming out extremely bare bones. To me, I just look at that. I'm like, how do you not just have 500 people that could do anything at any time?
Yeah, why don't you just go to Upwork and figure this out, man? You get this done in a long weekend.
Right. I know it's not that simple, but there's a disconnect from expectation to what is delivered, and to me, I look at that and I'm just like, it seems like they need more funding.
I do want to say, as much as I was joking, and please anybody blame me for making a joke about a Blizzard revolver being at the head of an employee, but
send your emails to Night Attack.
Justin Robert Young at gmail.com.
Blizzard, if you're going to blacklist anyone from future Team 5 interviews, make sure it's Night Attack. Justin R. Young, please hit me up with whatever band you have.
Views expressed by the following Justin do not reflect those of Pat.
But I think Team 5 deserves a lot of credit for sending people on that are going to talk as freely as they do talk, specifically when there is, look, there's a lot of change on that team right now. And they would have every right to say, well, we're going through a lot. We're trying to figure stuff out. We'll talk to you when tournament mode comes out or something like that. Or maybe 3 months after tournament mode comes out.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot of people complaining about that.
Yeah, and also to the credit, a lot of times, in the past, I have for other interviews, I have sent questions in and questions where the answer is no, or I can't talk about that right now. They say just don't ask it. They're not approved. You're not supposed to ask those questions. Whereas this time, we clearly had a lot of questions that we're not going to have exciting answers or answers that were going to please the fan base, and they still said yes, ask that question. So.
And that. To kind of pull behind the curtain, that's a huge favor from Blizzard, who controls these interviews and controls their talent going to talk to people, to allow you guys to keep your authenticity with your audience, to say, no, ask the question. We're going to say we can't talk about it, but at least we can all move on the tax side saying, we asked it.
We tried.
And their side saying, hey, listen, we can't talk about it or else the vultures will just try to pick our eyes out.
That's better than the.
I'm not sure that's better. Again, rather be shot or stabbed is the usual question, but now it's would you rather be shot or have your eyes pecked out by vultures?
Listen, I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe the Hearthstone Reddit.
Oh, okay. All right.
Ravenous vultures trying to pick the eyes out of the Team 5 developers is the closest I can think.
Well, Justin, you know what you just did? I mean, you've insulted Team 5, and now you've insulted
you / Justin R. Young. Please light me up.
No, I think
he's just being balanced. He's going after both sides.
I'm just saying. I get it. And I'm glad. I'm very, very glad, because Hearthstone's really the first Blizzard game that I've been involved with, and I've been lucky enough to know so many people that have covered the games, other games, that there's not a lot of disclosure specifically from devs that are currently working on the game for a lot of these properties, and Hearthstone has consistently made a point to do it, and to put somebody on TAC right after a leadership change is crazy.
Oh yeah, that request has been in for a while, and when the Bedbro news broke, I was just like, well, we're never gonna have anyone on. I'm gonna have to literally kidnap somebody at BlizzCon. That's how long it's gonna take for the Benbro dust to settle. And so hats off to them. And this was completely unplanned conversation. I hope you found it fascinating. I enjoyed having this talk.
There we go. That's what happens when it was either that or more Westworld talk. So
Okay. I could bring up Star Wars. No, we'll just wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Big, huge thanks again to our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. Hey, did you really like that How the Sausage is Made about developer interviews conversation? Would you like to give us a tip? Maybe $1 an episode, maybe $2 an episode? Patreon.com/TAC. We would appreciate it. If you dig the show and you want to help us out for free, a 5-star review on iTunes always helps. It helps Angry Chicken find new listeners, so drop a review there. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Michael N., Sean C., Johnny S., and LVE. We really appreciate it, gentlemen. You can get custom etched glassware at etched.amove.tv. By the way, we got pint glasses, wine glasses, stuff like that. We also have t-shirts available at shirts.amove.tv. Get the Angry Chicken emblazoned across your nipples with a shirt in between. Wonderful. Check it out.
Or a tattoo, if that's your thing.
I mean, I would get no money from that, but sure. Go get an angry... Actually, someone got like a tack tattoo.
Loyalty.
I don't know of anyone who has gotten a tack tattoo, and I'm... Please don't do this just because I'm saying to go do it, but I would lose my mind if someone had a TAC tattoo. I would lose it. One of these BlizzCons.
Have you guys not had a tack tattoo yet?
We have not.
I'm surprised.
One of these BlizzCons, I'm going to, we're all going to get kind of tipsy.
Oh, no, it's going to happen. You guys are going to get one. In fact, somebody might have one. They just haven't tagged you in a picture yet.
Oh, yeah. No, now I'm thinking, how one of these it's amazing it hasn't happened already that, the three of us having just gotten tipsy ended up at a tattoo parlor and been it's like the Lord of the Rings cast. We all have Hearthstone tattoos.
Man, listen, last year was my first BlizzCon. I don't know if any tattoo parlor would take people the way that everybody was at the end of those BlizzCon nights. Oh,
it's a party. It's a party.
It is. I'm going to have to go again. So if anyone's got a Lucy, holler at me.
Well, Justin, man, it was very fun having you join us midway through the show. Where can folks find all of the wonderful content that you create around the web?
Jeez, you want to know what, folks? Just head on over to twitter.com/JustinRYoung. If you're into politics, get my free political newsletter at freepoliticalnewsletter.com. And other than that, did Dills plug the reason why he's up here in the Bay Area?
I have no idea why he's up there.
Oh, he's doing a reunion show.
I knew
He's
that.
doing a reunion show.
Oh,
so
okay.
How about I plug that? You can come on out to the Ivy Room on that is in the East Bay, Albany, New York, Albany, California. The Hooks, Flex Bronco, and Youth Gone Wild. I believe you will see your regular co-host Willie Dills, obviously in the entire Youth Gone Wild set, and then a few songs for the headliner. But I will be there, so if you want to meet me and you want to meet Dills and you're in the Bay Area, then I would suggest coming on out. That is Friday at the Ivy Room. I just searched Youth Gone Wild Ivy Room, and I was able to find it. So I would love to shake hands with any TAC listeners going to see some rad music.
You will go up to them and introduce yourself as, "Hi, I'm not Dills."
Hi, I'm Dills. I'm not Dills. Dills is, and then I'll just gesture to the stage while he rocks and rages.
Yep. Well, man, I gotta say, as someone whose entire worldview is basically shaped by two things, Star Wars and 90s pop punk, and whose one of my favorite bands once wrote a song called Journey to the End of the East Bay, I am very jealous about the idea of getting to play a set with a punk band in the actual East Bay.
In the East Bay, tell you what, it was a pretty good. It's a pretty good place to be, except for last night when a earthquake rattled my apartment.
Oh, fun!
Right in the middle, and no spoilers to Westworld, but there was a very tense moment involving a shot glass full of nitroglycerin that was punctuated for me by a 3.8 magnitude earthquake that rattled my apartment. So
nice,
boy howdy, that new season of Westworld, that is some really intense stuff.
I like it. I like it a lot. Jocelyn, where can folks find you? Possibly talking about things like Westworld.
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. You can also catch me on Embrace the Spoilers Westworld. Garrett's actually going to be away next week, so I have Scott Johnson joining me to talk about Westworld on Monday. Very excited. You should also check out BattleNet Sports is returning this week. So if you liked the talk about HCT that we did at the end of the news segment this week on TAC, make sure that you're checking out BattleNet Sports. That is where I do weekly Hearthstone esports news.
Sweet. Yeah. I'll also be gone from TAC next week. Dills and Joss will be holding down the fort. So tune in for that. I appreciate you guys covering the production end while I'm gone. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. I'm going to be in New York City on Saturday. If you have opinions about things I should not miss, tweet at me at Garrett Art. If you're in New York and you want to say hi, I don't know where I'm going to be.
What are you doing in New York?
I'm going to help some friends at a graphic design expo, and really, really excited that I get to go and drink at all the speakeasies, which books I own and have taught me how to make cocktails.
Oh snap! Well, you should have a little meetup. Everybody go to Garrett's Twitter and figure out when, and just badger him to do a meetup.
Yeah, I don't know. If you check Death and Co., check PDT, check Pouring Ribbons, I'll be in those bars some nights.
You are the worst. You just say I'm gonna be there tonight. It's so easy.
I don't know when I'm playing it by ear. We're just gonna hop around.
Wait until
So that's what Twitter's for.
Yeah. Anyways, follow me on Twitter. amove.tv for all the other shows. NoMoonArt.com for the graphic design. I'm still taking graphic design commissions. Check that out. That's gonna wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next week. Job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes.
Excellent Dill's impression.
We learned last week to not try and sync it up because Skype lag is real.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep. We can do it live. We can't do it via VoIP. Justin, that was really fun. How many join in there, buddy?
Yeah. I wanted to be on the whole episode, and then Scott decided to bump the show a half hour, and it turns out our discussion about legalization of drugs took longer than expected.
Oh, wow. You mean you couldn't wrap that up in 45 minutes?
You know, you'd think you'd be able to knock that one out in a real quick half an hour, and drugs. What are you gonna do with them?
Who needs nuance with a conversation about that? I mean,
about law and race and drugs and all the easy topics.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, come on, I got to talk about Spiteful Summoner. Move it along.
Yes, I know we're talking about overdosing. Let's just wrap this up so I can talk about escapism.
Exactly, I know. Anyway,
well,
let me
talking about drugs is technically escapism.
My heartfelt plea for everybody to go find recovery help. Let's play that on 1.5 speed so I can.
Jesus. Yep.
Anyway,
this is what podcasting is like when you start to diversify your topics.
Listen, folks, at some point, my brain is going to just shatter into a million different pieces, and I'll just, I'll be a total babbling wreck.
I disagree. I think you are from Florida. You are trained to wildly shift emotions.
There is a benefit to having an unstable public persona that is doesn't matter really what you do. Someone will just be like, "Oh, that's so jury."
Yeah, that can work. I don't know. I just think it's Florida bumper sticker syndrome. You just see one completely inane thing followed by another, and you just have to accept it as reality and move on with your life.
Exactly. Florida might be the only state where you'll see like the love it or leave it right next to the coexist bumper sticker, and they mean everything seriously.
Yep, it's literally the neighborhood we live in, from one door to the next, wildly varying opinions, and our neighbors haven't killed each other, so
yet.
Anyways,
all right, guys, thank you so much. I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'll talk to you.
All right, see y'all. Chat room, you've been great.